Welcome to the American Reformer Podcast, hosted by Josh Abatoy and Timon Klein. Our mission is to promote a vigorous Christian approach to the cultural challenges of our day, rooted in the rich tradition of Protestant social and political thought.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the American Reformer Podcast. Your usual hosts are here, Timon Klein, Editor-in-Chief, and our Executive Director, Josh Abatoy. And we're joined today by a special guest. We have with us Kirk Cameron, which for most of you will need no introduction. But we're not here to talk about Left Behind, Kirk, or anything else like that. We're talking about an important initiative that you have, over the past couple years, been developing and spearheading. That's called See You at the Library, and we want to talk a bit about what this stands for and what it's doing currently. But I think first, to set the table, I think the impetus for this project and what it's trying to do would be important to get on the table for us.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on the program. And it's my joy to talk about all of this because ideas build worlds. And too many of us as evangelifish who have complained about the culture have essentially ducked into the closet, and we keep our mouths shut and we just wait for the rapture so that we can get out of this hellhole before the whole thing explodes. And really, I think that's missing the whole mission and what we ought to be doing as the family of faith on the earth while we are here. And that is, rather than being professional complainers, we ought to be enthusiastic creators of the culture. And rather than whining about how bad things are getting, let's start winning the public square and building the world we want our children to be able to live in, with its values, with its institutions that bless them rather than put them in bondage. And I'm trying to find people who want to think like that and then go do stuff, not just sit in Bible studies and have theological debates, but actually go do stuff and build a world that is going to advance the gospel, that's going to amplify light and truth, goodness, and beauty, make movies that tell the stories that will inspire our children and ignite their imagination to make Earth a little bit more like heaven. And I think you guys are helping to get that message out, and so many others are as well. And I'm a part of a cool initiative called See You at the Library, which is my spin on See You at the Pole, where parents and teachers would gather to pray at public schools. Well, we're gathering at public libraries, contra drag queen story hours, to read stories to kids about Christian virtue and character and wholesome stories. And parents and grandparents and families are showing up by the tens of thousands. And we've got some pretty amazing partners this year as our third annual event. And we're going to be in over 500 libraries across the country, singing songs of gratitude and praise to God, patriotic songs, praying, and then reading storybooks of virtue, extolling faith and family and kindness and gentleness and self-control. And it's super awesome. And we want to invite everybody to be a part of it because we're changing the narrative. Yeah,
that's excellent. And you already used one of our favorite terms on this show, which is evangelifish. It's been said many times before.
Yeah, it's a good one. I did Doug Wilson come up with that, or was it somebody else?
It could be. It's probably we can assume it's Doug. It's like a safe assumption.
That's a pretty safe assumption. And if it's not Doug Wilson, it's probably Charles Spurgeon. That's another safe assumption.
Safe assumption, or the Apostle Paul. One of the.
That's right.
But this, I mean, you raise an interesting point, and what that term kind of stands for is, it's very clear. I mean, you pointed out this is in a way it's reacting to, in many ways, the drag queen story hours, which is especially a few years ago were a total cultural flashpoint, which I think took some people by surprise, that this debate over libraries would matter so much. But the left seems it's very obvious to the left that occupying cultural and public space and presenting your message that way is effective, that it, as you said, it forms imaginations, it's visible, so on and so forth. But evangelicals have been either timid or kind of ignorant of these effects. Why do you think we're behind in this way, or what is it about us that precludes some of the options that the left is more than ready to use?
Bad doctrine, bad Bible teaching. And when we get it wrong in the pulpit, we get it wrong in the family. And then all of a sudden, politics is in the toilet and working for the enemy. I think it's true that politics is downstream of culture. And we as the family of faith should be creating the culture, and we should be raising up the politicians who sit in positions of decision making. And these would be men and women of virtue and character and faith, not compromising with a sin sick world system, but exposing darkness and correcting it and healing it. So when I think of what the left, when I say the left, I don't mean my grandfather's Democratic Party. I mean the elitists who are extreme radical people advancing socialism, Marxism, communism, and all of these isms that are essentially trying to swing the pendulum way to the left. And then you've got Republicans on the right who are trying to swing it way to the right. But I'm not convinced that they're not all part of the same party behind the political curtain. I think they're all toasting and having martinis and highballs together going, boy, they're really buying this fight. But back behind the curtain, I think a lot of them are just making deals with one another and accepting bribes and all of that kind of stuff. So I believe it was Reagan who said, look, we got to stop falling for the scam that we've got to choose between the left or the right. The real choice is between up or down. We either go up to maximum liberty under law in accordance with the virtues of God and heaven, or we go down to the ant heap of totalitarianism and bondage. That's our choice. And when I see people complaining about Trump or complaining about Hillary or complaining about Kamala or Biden or Barack or whatever it is, I get it. I totally get it. But I think that's on us as the family of faith. This all happened on our watch. Look, if my house, after owning it for 50 years, has gone to weeds and it's full of termites and rats and spiders, I'm not going to sit there and whine and complain. Someone's going to sit me down and go, son, this happened on your watch. What the hell have you been doing? And when we as a country were built on biblical values, we have chief justices who said the things that they've said. We have founding fathers and forefathers and mothers who said the stuff that they said. You know, we could talk about Washington, or we could talk about Noah Webster. We could talk about John Jay and others. And then we say, after all this time, look where we're at. We got to choose between Kamala and Trump. Really? This is what we have figured out in all of our wisdom and all of our faith and all of our doctrine and all of this as the family of faith. We can do a lot better. And I think part of the problem is the left actually has a vision for the future on earth, whereas many evangelicals don't. Mm-hmm. They actually think that the rapture's coming as soon as Tuesday, and therefore another 500-year plan is irrelevant. And we're just trying to get as many people saved as possible, get them in the lifeboats before the Titanic of the world sinks. And that's going to be about the best that we can do, and stay out of politics because, you know, God forbid we let our Christian reputations get tarnished by voting for somebody who may not think exactly like we think. But again, I think this has happened on our watch. We've got to take responsibility for it. And our grandkids are going to be looking to us going, where were you? What did you do? Why were you so scared to say something? Why didn't you stand and fight? Where were the Bravehearts? Where were the Patriots? Where were the William Wallaces? Where were the William Bradfords? Where were the George Washingtons of your day, Grandpa?
That's so good. I mean, there's so much to respond to there, Kirk. I mean, but I'm reminded as you spoke of Martin Luther's quote that if he knew that God were returning tomorrow, coming back to earth for the final judgment, he said, the thing I would do is I'd go outside and plant a tree in my yard. And we need that mentality. A lot of American Christians are dispensationalists, that they believe a rapture could be imminent. But even for them, we need to, I think all of us need to do a better job inspiring them and encouraging them to work for the future. I think education, as you highlighted, is it's such a key issue. It's really, if God's blessed you with children, that's your number one mission field above everything else. And everybody historically understood this. I would say the left in modern America understands that education is actually culture building, right? Like, you are deciding what the world's going to be like
1,000%.
Yeah. So I guess, but look, when you go out there, I think you're absolutely right that the left has done a much more effective job casting a vision for the future.
You know where they got it from? I'm preaching to the choir here. I mean, this is, you guys are smart guys. You have beards and stuff. And so, of course, all they did was they picked up our playbook.
Yeah.
They came over to our locker room. They picked up the playbook. It's the Bible, and it's right there in Deuteronomy 6, and it showed them how to do it. Here's how you build the world. Ready? Okay, listen carefully. Get these principles deep down into your own heart, and then take those principles and teach them to your children. Teach it to them when they wake up in the morning, when they go to sleep at night, when they're sitting on the couch, when they're walking along the path, when you put them to sleep, and when they rise up in the morning. And if you can do that, then you know what you do? Put them on your flags, tie them to your wrists, tie these signs and symbols to your forehead, teach them in the schools, put them on the doorposts of your house, frame your whole friggin' world by these principles. And in 20, 30 years, you've created the world that you want. I mean, that's Deuteronomy 6. It's basic culture building, and it all starts with the family. They're just running our plays better than we have been running them, and we can do so much better.
Look, culture building, what you're saying here, casting an alternative, positive vision for the future, this is a challenging thing to do, especially when not many other people do it. When the leftist goes out and does it, they have the ballast of all of the entertainment, all of the mainstream media, building up a narrative that they're playing within. But I'm curious, when you've gone and done your events at libraries, how is that being received? I mean, because sometimes it can be lonely and tough to be, one of very few voices that's starting to try to sell an alternative, positive vision.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it can be lonely. Absolutely. And some people in the past have been met with great opposition, and they've sacrificed everything for that vision. My personal experience is a little different in that I was locked out of 50 libraries. These members of the Purple Hair Platoon said, "No, we don't want your kind. We don't want your message. In fact, we don't agree with your values. We're an inclusive society." I thought, okay, well, so why are you excluding me from the public library? I want to come talk to the kids about kindness and gentleness. And when I told my friends at the news about that, they broadcast it. We ended up going to these libraries, even though they didn't like it, and thousands of people showed up. And so it's been a wonderful reception. The response has been people, Christians and non-Christians, coming out of the woodwork because they just understand some basic stuff, like, biological men shouldn't be in women's boxing, pummeling them, and dudes can't have babies, and all kinds of other basic stuff. It's as upside down and backwards as someone, it'd be like this. Could you ever imagine a day where the sun says that it wants to identify as a ball of ice that only shows itself in the middle of the night? We'd say, but that's crazy. Well, our grandparents would have said the same thing about what we're talking about today in the public square, that men can have babies, that up is down and down is up. And so people are tired of that. They're seeing false systems fall apart. It's like a big giant oak tree. It's impressive with all of its branches and leaves, but it's got no root. And so the thing falls over. And I think the political winds have shifted. Parents are now wising up and saying, we can't just misrepresent reality and think the world's going to go well. And so they want to get away from these giant value systems that have created these structures and institutions that are hurting our kids and their future. And they're moving away, and they want to be a part of movements like See You at the Library. They're watching television shows and movies, and they're beginning to go back to basic things and getting off of social media and beginning to educate their children and getting back to the basics of the creeds and catechisms and the historic faith that's going to give them structure and order and historical integrity and align their values with the way that God actually made the world. And that's a beautiful thing. I'm excited about it.
Well, I do think, you mentioned something there, people, wanting to get away. I do think, several years ago, like when the Drag Queen Story Hour discussion started, there's a very well-known evangelical commentator who tried to convince everybody this was, it's necessary to have these things in your face. It's a blessing of liberty. This is how, we have to operate. But as that has progressed and not gone away over probably the past 3 or 4 years, you do see more and more Christians voting with their feet, we might say, moving to places that are more hospitable to their way of life, and also trying to intentionally build, communities of like-minded people so that they can live this way. Are you seeing evidence of that in your when you have these events and the people showing up? Is this the culture that's being created with these Christians?
Yes, 100%. That's right. Everywhere I go, I'm feeling the rumblings of a revival underneath my feet. And I think COVID was a great blessing because it just outed so much evil and darkness that was going on behind the scenes in our public schools. Kids were now home. Parents are watching on laptops to see what their kids are actually being taught. I saw it as a parent when my kids were in high school and they were in a Christian school and they were being taught all of this woke garbage indoctrination, leftist propaganda, Marxist mush that I was like, holy cow, wow, look at this, even in one of our schools. And parents are realizing that you only get to do this once. Parenting is a sacred honor and a privilege. And we've got to teach our kids the right stuff. I think that's why it's so important what we teach our kids and the religious framework that we give them. I'm beginning to appreciate the creeds more and more. I'm beginning to appreciate the catechisms more and more. I don't want to get stuck in old form that doesn't make room for creativity and imagination and the guiding and urging of the Holy Spirit and all of this. But we've got to teach human beings how to think right, because when their thinking is wrong, that ends up in the actions being wrong. Hey, can I just share something that was said by one of our founding fathers, Noah Webster, and I've memorized it because it's really important and relevant to what we're talking about. Webster, just for background, was Noah Webster, gave us Webster's Dictionary, one of the founding fathers known as the father of American education. He was in stark contrast to a guy named Horace Mann, who really started and popularized public education off of a humanist worldview. And Noah Webster said this: every civil government is based on some religion or philosophy of life, and the education of that nation propagates the religion of that nation. In America, that foundational religion was Christianity, and it was sown into their hearts for 200 years through the home and the school, both public and private. Our liberty, prosperity, and growth is the result of a biblical way of life. And our future growth and success is dependent on teaching the youth of America the principles of Christianity. So that is the deal. And again, the enemies of the faith, the enemies of liberty, the enemies of God understand that principle. That's why everyone wants to get to the children. That's why you have drag queens talking to toddlers. You're thinking, what the heck are you guys doing? If you want to hang out in a seedy bar somewhere, or I get it. If you're looking for some extra money to put yourself through college and you want to go entertain some kinky friends, that's one thing, but leave our kids alone. Like, that's just sick. What are you doing? Well, no, actually, there are smart people who are actually trying to build the future of the world, and they know they've got to get to children to do it. It's much easier to convince them that men can appropriately, wear a beard and fishnet stockings and a miniskirt. They understand that that's much easier to convince a child of that than it is to convince parents and grandparents of that. And they're actually following the Deuteronomy chapter 6 model and playing the long game.
Kirk, you mentioned raising a new generation of bravehearts. And that is, I think we all know that doesn't happen by accident. That requires careful cultivation of biblical virtue. It requires careful cultivation of the right moral imagination, getting stories in front of kids that grip their imaginations and end up shaping their character formation for years.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you, that's a huge responsibility, a huge a question and challenge. Like, how do you think about that with the literature that you're putting together for these programs? Like, what are you looking for when you decide you're going to read a particular book at one of these events?
Yeah. Well, the books that I've been reading, I've come to trust Brave Books. Brave Books is a little publishing company out of Texas who's growing. And now they have a streaming platform, and they're producing children's content, television content. And we've even created our brand new version of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Think Mr. Rogers meets Sesame Street for modern families today, dealing with all sorts of issues, not just about honesty and integrity and faith, but also tackling identity issues, dealing with, what about the LGBTQ issues? What about all these other things that Mr. Rogers never had to deal with back in the 50s and 60s? So Brave Books is writing all of these books that have pro-God, pro-America values, and they've got dozens and dozens of them. I've written a few. One is Pride Comes Before the Fall. That's a book about humility. We released that during Pride Month. Another book about the fruit of the Spirit, and then another book about courage and loving your enemies. So reading books of virtue is so important because kids love stories. Jesus taught in parables. And I think parents and grandparents should never pass up the opportunity to read your kids' stories and ignite their imagination for the good. So I go with Brave Books. If I were a parent and I'm saying, who can I trust? Where do I go? What can I do? Super easy. Go to bravebooks.com and sign up for their Book of the Month Club. They'll send you a new book every month, and it's in this cool envelope that your kids or grandkids will recognize, and they're waiting for it. And it's all cool because every story relates to the previous stories. They're all part of different sagas that occur in the same universe, kind of like Star Wars. So all the characters are familiar with each other, and you're learning the prequel and the backstories. And then there's maps and stickers and toys and adventures and games and challenges that bring family time together. And it's all undergirded with scripture. So I love Brave Books. And if you go there, you can learn all about this other thing we talked about called See You at the Library, happening on August 16th. And that's something you can do out in the public and be a part of this movement.
How does that, can you just, for those who don't know, how does that work? Like, how do you sign up for it? What does that look like for people across the country?
Yeah, go to bravebooks.com. What do you mean, the library or the Brave Books Book of the Month?
The library, yes.
The library. Yeah. Go to seeyouatthelibrary.com. That's seeyouatthelibrary.com. And then there's a great big map there. Click on your state, zoom into your county, and find the library near you. And you can just show up. Go there and be a part of the singing and the praying and the reading of books of virtue in the public square. You wouldn't believe it, but some of these libraries that have terrible leadership are booking up all of the rooms just to block us out so that moms and dads in their own community cannot reserve a story hour. But many of them have already got the hour reserved. And you can even start one of your own. You can hold a fundraiser. You can do all this stuff. The instructions are at seeyouatthelibrary.com. And Come be a part of over 50,000 people in over 500 libraries in all 50 states, standing up for the values that we want to shape our children's future.
Wow, that's massive. 500 libraries. Yeah, that's like 10 libraries per state. That's a lot of coverage. I mean, a good chance most listeners are going to have a library within driving distance.
Yeah,
that's wonderful. That's great to hear. What's next after that? Do you want to keep growing the See You at the Library program?
Yeah, we want to continue to grow that. And the cool thing about all of this is that I started reading these books a couple of years ago, and I really just provided a spark, but the fire caught, and now it's spread to parents and to pastors. Now you're not just hearing about drag queen story hours, you're hearing about pastor story hours, you're hearing about teacher story hours, and it's really cool. So it's going to grow. It is growing. I don't have to go to library after library anymore. Other people have picked up the baton and they're running with it. And we continue to do that in our schools and our libraries. If we continue to write music and tell stories through television and film and podcasts and everything else, I believe that we can wholly change the narrative. But all of it's got to be undergirded with the one and only thing that can actually change the human heart. And that is the gospel of Jesus Christ. Everything else is just a makeover. It's just putting lipstick on a pig. External aesthetics and beauty and form and institutions, all of that is important, right? i.e., we can't ignore schools, we can't ignore politics, but changing just schools and politics without a transformation of the heart through the gospel is just putting lipstick on a pig. It'll eventually start to stink again.
Well, I think that's we want to be respectful of your time, Kirk. You've been generous with it. And thank you so much for talking to us about what you're doing and how others can get involved. Any parting thoughts here as we sign off? We're coming up on time.
Let me close with this thought. There was a man named Alexis de Tocqueville who is credited as saying something that I've always remembered. He said, I went to discover the secret of America's success. And Alexis was from France. And he said, I searched for the secret, and I looked in her commodious harbors and her ample rivers, and it was not there. I went to her boundless prairies and her deep, rich mines, and it was not there. I looked to her vast world commerce, and it was not there. I even searched in the halls of democracy itself, and it wasn't there. He said, it wasn't until I went to the churches in America, and I heard her pulpits aflame with righteousness, did I discover the secret to her genius and her power. America is great because she's good. And if America ever ceases to be good, she will cease to be great.
Excellent note to end on. Thank you again, Kirk, for coming on, giving us some of your time. And listeners, do go check out, we'll have show links, of course, for you to click on. Do go check out the information given here by Kirk so you can get involved. And thank you, as always, for listening. Please do subscribe. And until next time, God bless.
You can find American Reformer on the internet at www.americanreformer.org or on x.com, formerly Twitter, at @AMReformer. Don't forget to like, rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. Please consider supporting us today by making a tax-deductible donation through our secure online donation portal at AmericanReformer.org. That's AmericanReformer.org.